The Iranian foreign minister has claimed that the protests in his country will not lead to regime change. The protests have been going on for more than 2 weeks now and have led to the arrest of more than 400 people. The spark which led the fuse is that of a 22-year-old Masha Armini, which was traveling with her family from the northwestern region of Kurdistan to Tehran, where she was stopped by the morality police for wearing immodest clothing. Having refused to dress appropriately, she was then taken to a guidance center. Now, if you're wondering what the immodest police and the guidance centers are, think about if the people who run Twitter or the American social media would manage to get in a position of power in an actual country, and they would have the Trust and Safety Council running things and deciding what is offensive and what isn't. But instead of banning people for an offensive joke or an edgy song, they would actually have the power not to just arrest, but to send people to a re-education camp or a guidance center. And that's what this police of morality is. It enforces Iran's terms of service upon its users. They get to decide what is offensive for the public, and then they target individuals which are acting in an offensive manner, because you have freedom of expression, but you're not allowed to offend others. Look, I'm really sorry. Like, I wish I would have the moral high ground to criticize like I would have had back in 2016. But seeing how America is building the type of culture right now, which also operates on the same premise, like you're not allowed to be offensive, you're not allowed to say things that others would disagree with, and it's not just being enforced on social media, but it's supported by actual American citizens who want more of the same, and if they were in power, they would create a similar system. It makes it very difficult for me to look at this and feel as if I have the moral high ground. Because I don't believe that here in the West we have the liberties that we once had to be able to look at this with the disgust that it demands. So, again, the West is not there, all right? Like, we are definitely not in the era of Iran. But yet again, the people in these private companies that can do whatever they want, if they would ever get into power, if they would ever run elections and manage to get themselves into the positions where they would have genuine power, I have no doubt that they would import a similar authoritarian culture that cracks down on individual liberties and on human rights. I mean, if you don't believe me, Justin Trudeau has the audacity to talk about this issue. When protests happened in his country, he didn't spend even 5 seconds talking with the protesters. He didn't even went down there to hear about their complaints. No, what he did is he immediately accused them of being Islamophobes and then used the power of the government to seize their bank accounts so that they do not have the money to protest. Now, of course, the West is authoritarian with a smiley face. You're not going to be sent to a guidance center. You're not going to get arrested. But you will lose your job, you will lose your body, you will lose your bank account. So in a way, it's better being homeless than being in a guidance center. I fully agree with that. But it seems that the progress is towards more authoritarianism rather than less. So with that rant out of the way, the reason the protest happened isn't that this lady was taken to a guidance center, because many other ladies have been taken to these guidance centers regularly, otherwise the centers wouldn't exist. No, it's due to the fact that she had a heart attack. Now, a 22-year-old in Iran having a heart attack is incredibly unlikely. So people assumed that the officers weren't very gentle with her, to put it in a way so that YouTube's terms of service doesn't get upset. And that's what sparked the actual protests. And the protests have been going around for more than 2 weeks. There are brutal images on Twitter, which yet again I can't show on YouTube. But they're there and they're quite significant. And this is due to the fact that in Iran, you have the more elderly population that supports the current regime and agrees with the dress codes. And then you have the newer generation, the younger generation that, of course, they're still Muslims, but they do not support the current dress codes. And this causes social frictions. social frictions that have existed for a long while. There have been previous protests about this. And Masha Amini is the catalyst for something that was bound to happen eventually. If it wasn't for her, it would have been another woman. Because the problem is there and the friction between the two generations is starting to show. Take into account that Iran in the past looked absolutely nothing like Iran looks today. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Trust and Safety Council of Iran, or the Police of Morality, as they call them. They operate in white vans with green stripes and are usually stationed at places where pedestrians frequent or where young people gather. The mere sight of them is enough to convince people to stop being offensive in public, and those who refuse are issued a verbal warning. If they further refuse, then they are being detained and taken to these these guidance centers where authoritative sources and experts persuade the individuals to wear their their hijabs properly, and only after signing a piece of paper where they claim they will never offend again, will their family members be contacted so that they can come and pick them up. It's also important to point out that women aren't the only one which have to go through a dress code in the country of Iran. Men are also subjected to guidelines, but to a much lesser extent. Long hair, for example, or certain hairstyles which are deemed eccentric are not permitted, as well as the wearing of shorts, jeans, and t-shirts have occasionally fallen foul of the authorities because they are brought from the horrible West. Now, the reason for my previous rant is due to the fact that many politicians on the left, especially women in positions of power, who support the freedom of expression, who support human rights, whenever they go to Iran, they wear a fucking hijab. So, I don't understand, like, if you are in a position of power and strength, and you have to cover up when dealing with Iran, how do you expect the people within Iran who have less power than you and can't deal from the same position of strength with their government, how do you expect them to fight for their rights? Now, it's fine if you don't care about it, but I do see a lot of these people giving lip service to the protesters. You could have done more to help had you actually chose not to wear a hijab when traveling in that country. Finally, due to the protests, the Iranian government has decided to restrict access from the internet to its citizens. And I want to say that is very backwards. That is a violation of human rights. What Iran should have done was to get the FBI to pressure the social media companies to remove content that is considered offensive, because that is the progressive way, that is the Western way, that is the modern way for the modern audience to deal with certain issues. And then you don't have to take down the internet. It doesn't look like you're against the human rights. And that's the correct way of solving it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.